Hello everyone, Trevorius here, and today I'm going to explain when and why to take high ground. My smurfing adventures have shown me that a lot of players understand at a basic level that high ground is good, but they don't actually understand why. This causes them to over-prioritize high ground or, after many failed uses of high ground, formulate the mistaken assumption that high ground must not work for them. First, let's go over why high ground is good. There's two main reasons to take high ground. Number one, you can see the enemy easier and they can't see you as well. When on high ground, the enemy will usually only be able to see your torso, whereas you can see their entire character model, giving you a distinct advantage in landing your shots. And number two, having high ground means the enemy can't engage on you. If they're all on the regular ground, only you can determine when to engage the fight. It also means that you can engage behind or in front of them, or to the side of them, and it makes it really easy to hit big CC ultimates like Zarya or Reinhardt. That's why high ground is good. So how do people misuse it? Well, the first and biggest mistake I see is the whole team latching onto high ground, refusing to contest the objective. As I mentioned, you get to choose when to engage when you have the high ground, but if you keep waiting and poking from high ground, you're giving up the biggest reason you're there in the first place. As a general rule, it is the tanks and flankers' job to jump down and contest the objective. Ranged DPSs and supports can stay on the high ground until the fight is mostly won, at which point they can jump down or stay. That way you retain the sightline advantage for your DPSs. The second mistake players make is assuming that in order to effectively use high ground, the whole team has to be there. That's simply not true. Sometimes it is better to let certain DPSs and supports, most notably Ana and Soldier, stay on the high ground while the rest of the team fights on the low ground. This is usually done to avoid grouping up and getting comboed if you think that the enemy has a potent ult combination. If they do, grouping up on the high ground every fight will allow them to eventually wipe you with that combo. And the third mistake I see is not following up on a teammate falling or getting pushed off the high ground. There are many ways to get pushed off high ground, and sometimes someone will just get booped. If that happens, it counts as an engage and the team has to follow up on it. Obviously, it's not optimal, but it's not as bad as leaving that teammate to die and making the fight a 5v6. Sometimes you have to make the best of an unfortunate situation, and following a teammate who has fallen down is a good example of that. So since I've covered the biggest mistakes, let me give some examples of good uses of high ground. One of my favorite uses of high ground is a flanking Reinhardt ult. If you have Reinhardt, you can jump down onto a payload or a point from high ground and shatter before the enemy Rein and his team can all get behind the shield. Usually you can just jump behind the enemy and at least catch the supports with your shatter, and sometimes you can even get the DPSs. Another good use of high ground is a nano boost tactical visor combo. This is the popular combo right now, although in the future this could include nano high noon. Since you're on high ground, you'll have clear sightlines to all enemies. Very few times will all the enemies be in a safe position, and you can use that to quickly pick off those who are exposed and then drop down to finish off the rest. And the last good use of high ground that I'll cover is Zarya ult from high ground. Since you're not constricted by the shield of the enemy Reinhardt, you can easily drop on the enemy backline and use ultimate. This ensures that they will be caught, and if you combo it with another ultimate, this is usually a free wipe as well. You may have noticed a common theme from all of those plays: isolating the backline. That's the biggest advantage that high ground gives, a clear path to the enemy backline. A typical team fight will involve first eliminating the enemy front line so that you can reach the backline. If you try to dive the backline on even ground, you'll be killed before you can reach them. However, with high ground, it's as simple as dropping on top of them. The negatives of diving are completely removed. That's the biggest thing that you should take away from this video. High ground gives you an easy path to eliminate the enemy backline, and it gives them a very hard path to eliminate your backline. If you're in control of the high ground, use it to engage on their backline. Don't just sit there doing nothing, but also don't engage on the wrong targets. If you're on the low ground and are part of your team's backline, stay with your tanks. That's your key to survival. Don't isolate yourself, because then you're just giving the enemy what they want. You might think it's risky to stay so close to the front, but believe me, it's even worse to stay far back and get picked off. Thanks for watching the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see more of me, feel free to follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/Trevorius01 or on Twitch at twitch.tv/Trevorius01. I will see you guys in my next video.